Thoughts and reaction to news of a British death and a British national missing in Ukraine?
Well, Colin, it won't surprise you to hear, as somebody who's lost several friends on operations, that this is not something that anybody ever wanted to hear. And I must say, my heart goes out to the families who are getting this awful news right now. And I just hope that the person who's missing is found very soon and safe and well.
Conflict, which, as our Foreign Secretary indicates, or she suggests, could go on for a decade. Are we looking at a conflict that we can liken, say, to something like the Spanish Civil War, where nationals from many different countries, but yes, from the UK as well, will regularly go to fight and, yes, perish?
Well, I hope what we're looking at actually is a conflict that's going to be resolved soon. You know, we're increasing massively the armaments available to the Ukrainian people. The Ukrainians have mobilized themselves extremely effectively into a very formidable armed force, and they're demonstrating their capability in taking on what can only be described as the corrupt remnants of a once great army, which is the Russian army. They've completely torn it to pieces in the north and the northeast, and now they pinned it down in the southeast. I hope very much what we'll see is that our support, the support of many other countries around the world in new forms of or different forms of weaponry and increasing amounts of ammunition will mean that this war is ended soon, with the Russians driven out of Ukrainian territory.
Is it a realistic war aim to expect Russia to be completely ejected from Ukraine?
Well, I think a realistic war aim, I'm afraid, is to leave this to the Ukrainian people to decide, because it's they who are fighting and dying for their country. It's they who are going to have to make the decision as to what is and what is not acceptable. I'm afraid it's not for me to make that call. What I think we should be doing is making sure that we support them in every way that is necessary. We make sure that they have the capability to take the actions they feel they wish to take. And then it's up to them to evaluate what the costs of those actions are. It's not up to me to do that.
It does feel, though, however, this week of all weeks, that our involvement, the UK's involvement in this conflict, is new in terms of the level of engagement. I say that within an hour of us learning that a British national's been killed in Ukraine, one missing too. But also in the week that we heard Sergei Lavrov talk about and not just Sergei Lavrov, also the Foreign Ministry spokeswoman, say in terms we've not heard before, that the UK, NATO, but specifically the UK was mentioned, run the risk of being targeted as a NATO power involving itself in Ukraine by supplying weapons as a legitimate target for the Russians.
Well, that would be a remarkable change for the Russian military doctrine. After all, they ran proxy wars throughout the 60s and 70s, where they fueled conflict with weapons and indeed training teams and people like that for years and years. And it was, if you accept the comparison, that was part of the Cold War doctrine. And we're doing less than that in many ways. We don't have training teams in Ukraine. What we're doing instead is we're just making sure the Ukrainians have the ability to defend themselves. This is actually an entirely defensive operation. I think it would be exceptionally unwise of Putin's Russia to do that. I think it would be exceptionally unwise of Putin to try and escalate this. He's already fighting on far more fronts than he possibly can manage. And so I hope what we'll see actually is increasing sense of reality in Moscow, though I must admit I doubt whether it'll reach quite as far as Putin, and seeing the Russians realize the true price of this tyrannical regime that has sadly murdered so many Russian young men in Ukraine.